Hello my fellow weirdos, I'm Lizzie Lore and welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you guys were able to catch my video that I posted about a week or two ago about urban legends. I really appreciate it. I worked really hard on that video and I appreciate everybody who was able to be a part of that with me. Got a lot of good feedback from it, and I've even had people asking me like, hey, when are you posting your next video? So I had a little time off today. I got off of work a little bit early today, so I was able to come home, get stuff set up, and go ahead and make this video. And that is my cat. That's Little Girl. So one of them. So today we're going to be talking about horror movies brought to life. I am a horror movie fan. I love horror movies, even the really gory ones. But have you guys ever been watching a horror movie and the words "based on a true story" comes up? There's nothing scarier than that. Well, today we're going to be talking about some of those real life murderers. Now, these stories are a little dark, so if you are triggered by murders or sexual assault, then please click off of this video. Without further ado, let's dive right in. Do you guys remember the movie Candyman? It was a movie, I want to say it came out back in the late 80s, early 90s. And it was about a man that if you said his name in the mirror 5 times, then he would show up and stab you with the hook that he has for a hand. Well, as intense as that is, somehow the story of the real Candyman is a little more disturbing. So in the fall of 1974, a man by the name of Ronald Clark O'Brien was estimated to be about $100,000 in debt. He bought some cyanide powder and filled 5 pixie sticks with it. His plan was to murder his son and his daughter and to be able to collect the $60,000 in insurance money that he had taken out on them to relieve some of his debt. On Halloween, he and his neighbor took their children out trick-or-treating. He gave 2 pixie sticks to his son and his daughter, 1 each, and he did the same thing with his neighbor's children, and to be able to throw people off of his trail, he ended up giving one of the pixie sticks to a random child also out trick-or-treating that night. His son Timothy was the only child that actually consumed one of the pixie sticks, and unfortunately about an hour later he succumbed to the cyanide poisoning. The entire block was terrified, as they should be. People were freaking out, like, who would do this? Who would do this to our children? Who would poison candy on Halloween? It's supposed to be a fun time. So people started getting a little suspicious that Timothy was the only one that actually consumed it. So of course police started questioning O'Brien about it, and he seemed slightly suspicious, and after the pixie sticks had been recovered, they said that the one that Timothy consumed was enough to kill 2 adults, and the remaining 4 had enough cyanide to have killed 4 adults. That's insane. Just a few days after Halloween, on November 5th, 1974, O'Brien was arrested. In June of 1975, he was convicted of 1 count of capital murder and 4 counts of attempted murder, and was sentenced to death. In March of 1984, he was executed by lethal injection. Now, I know Halloween's supposed to be a fun time. It's actually my favorite holiday. I love Halloween. They could literally do away with every other holiday and just keep Halloween, and I would be perfectly okay with that. But if this has happened one time, of course, it can absolutely happen again. So please, if you are taking your children trick-or-treating, don't let them eat any of the candy until you've been able to inspect it. Make sure it's not opened. Make sure it doesn't look like it's been tampered with. Anything that looks suspicious, just throw it away. Halloween's supposed to be a fun time. Let's try and keep it that way. So here's a fun fact about me. I'm not okay when it comes to clowns. They make me very uncomfortable. Ronald McDonald freaks me out, okay? I've never seen the It movies, old or new. I don't like clowns. So this next story isn't any different. And it's about the killer clown known as John Wayne Gacy. And he's one of the most well-known serial killers there is. Between the years of 1972 and 1978, Gacy killed 33 men and boys, and that's just what we know about. That's just what he confessed to. So it's quite possible that there's more, but we just don't know about them, and we can't find them. Gacy was known as the killer clown because he used to dress up as a clown to do kids' parties and parades and even just backyard barbecues that he'd have at his house. Gacy also had a successful business, which is why people were so shocked that he could do something like this. But he actually called it the handcuff and rope trick. And what he would do is he would get his victims completely and utterly intoxicated, whether it be off of drugs or alcohol, until they passed out. Some of his victims he actually sexually assaulted while they were passed out. He even admitted to chloroforming one of his victims repeatedly before killing him. He also admitted to where he had hidden the bodies. Most of them were under the crawl space of his house, and one body was even buried under the floorboards of his dining room. In 1980, he was sentenced to death, and in May of 1994, he was executed by lethal injection. So I'm going to ask you a question. Who's the most terrifying cannibal in Hollywood, even to this day? If you answered Hannibal Lecter, you would be correct. Now, as we all know, Hannibal Lecter is a character in the book Silence of the Lambs by Thomas Harris. But what if I told you that this was actually based on a real person? Now, for a long time, it was under speculation that he was based on Jeffrey Dahmer or other serial killers. But in 2013, Thomas Harris actually came out about who his character was actually based off of. At the time, before he wrote this book, he was actually a journalist, and he was doing a story on an inmate that was in a Mexican prison. And this is where he met Albert Bale Trevino, who was a surgeon and also an inmate at this prison. In the 1960s, Trevino actually had an argument with his roommate. Now, different articles that I read about what this argument was about says that Jesus Castillo Rangel was either his lover or just his roommate. It wasn't really clear whether the argument was about money that was owed to Trevino from Rangel, or whether it was an argument about Rangel actually leaving Trevino. Whatever the argument was about, Trevino was angry enough to where he actually drugged Rangel. And not only did he drug him, but he dragged his unconscious body into the bathroom, put him into the tub, and slit his throat. Once he drained him entirely of his blood, he then cut him into pieces and placed him in a box. He then gave the box to his farmhand and used the excuse that it was medical waste that he needed to dispose of. The farmhand ended up burying the box in a shallow grave somewhere in the yard. And a few days later, someone, it's not mentioned who, actually finds the shallow grave and gets a little suspicious about it and report it to the authorities. Trevino was only sentenced to 20 years in prison. Now, this story has somewhat of a silver lining. Once he was released from prison, he ended up continuing to do surgeries on people that couldn't afford the life-saving operations that they needed to survive, until he eventually died of pancreatic cancer. I wasn't able to find what year that was. And he did all these surgeries for free. Like, he didn't charge any of the families, and this was not only like elderly people, but it was also like children. And so I guess he figured he would save a few lives for the one that he took. I know this doesn't mean that it's gonna just wash away that he completely took someone else's life. I mean, I guess it is a little good that he decided to do this to help people and to save a few lives, even though he had taken one himself. But that is all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it. I plan on doing many more just like this, whether it be with serial killers or urban legends or conspiracy theories. And I'm actually working on a couple of things, and I hope you guys are able to tune into that as well. I would really appreciate it. If you guys have any ideas of things that you would like to hear about, please let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the little notification bell so every time I post a video, you guys will be the first ones to know about it. So, until next time, bye.